welcome back to Bomber Banter. Long time no see. Although, actually, it's only actually been a week since the chaos and the collective exhaustion that was Essendon's trade period ended. I don't know why it feels like I haven't spoken to you all for much longer, but we did have that live fan cams, which was fabulous. Anyway, now that the dust has settled, now that the adrenaline has faded and the emotions cooled, myself, my own included, I thought that it would be good for us to talk about and wrap up, I guess, the trade period, where our list is at, and basically putting a bit of a psychological lens, as you know I all love to do, to it. So I think it'll be really beneficial for Essendon fans to understand the behavioural science behind, obviously, particularly Zach's behaviour and the club's. So let's get into it. Ultimately, the space that's been left for us as Essendon fans is a little unnerving, and that's because as supporters, we've been left caught between a pretty confusing set of emotions. We didn't win, but we didn't lose. And I think the majority of us can connect and feel comforted in the club for once, not being bullied into submission. But at the same time, there's this disconcerting sensation poking at us because simultaneously we feel the heaviness of opening our arms back up to our captain, who no longer really wants to be embraced by us. Psychologically, those two sides present an emotional clash. There's a strength with a rejection. From a psychological perspective, Zach's behaviour is actually makes quite a lot of sense when you understand it, the nuances behind it. Here's a bloke who's carried the weight of a club for years, without any real tangible payoff. He's done everything right. He trains like a maniac. He holds standards. He tries to set the tone, but he's had to do it in an environment that's been frankly unstable and toxic for most of his career. But subconsciously, that's where I think Zach's decision-making starts to shift. He's not sitting there consciously thinking, I'm betraying this club. He's thinking, I need to feel some control again. Because for someone like Zach, control is everything. He's a perfectionist by nature, which we love. He thrives on order, on structure, on doing things right, the right way. And when the club that he's captaining keeps failing to match that standard, well, it's understandable that breeds a resentment because you feel like you're putting more into what you're getting out of it. And so quietly, he's been going through the motions, shelving his pain, shelving his disappointment after each season ends, internalising it. The problem with that is, and this is a societal problem, is that our nervous systems are not built to hold years of internal churn. And if you keep dumping your pain on the pile, one day your nervous system is going to say, I'm not doing this anymore. Physically cannot hold this anymore. And there's going to be an unregulated explosion of emotion. And that is ultimately what we saw. In an ideal world, Zach would have opened up when the extreme heaviness started to hit him, probably after, obviously, he started to be captain and probably just before he re-signed. I'm not talking about the notion of opening up logically or intellectually by sitting down with the hierarchy and, listing the young players who haven't come on or rehashing the losses. I'm talking about actually verbalising that captaining this club is suffocating you, that your head is telling you to run and you're seriously thinking of listening to it. The problem with this ideal situation, though, is that it's messy, it's icky, and it requires a really high level of vulnerability, which frankly is scary as shit. It's much easier to run than it is to surrender and to sit with your pain. Now, some people will say, well, Fiona, how do you know he wasn't having these conversations and blah, blah, blah? Well, if he had been, we wouldn't have seen such an extreme attempt to escape by demonising and humiliating the club and by extension the fans. Because Zach's not a bad guy. He's not a bad person, and it was an out-of-body reaction. And this just doesn't happen when your nervous system feels safe and contained. I think Zach got overwhelmed, and I think Tom Petroro's answer to it was, oh, well, we'll just get you out of there. But we've got to blow some shit up. So what now? Well, discomfort, forced healing, and nowhere to run from it. trust needs to be rebuilt, that's for sure. And many of those vulnerable, raw conversations that I've alluded to need to take place. They just must. It's a non-negotiable if this club is going to move forward. I've softened in my view a little bit that time will settle the frequency and that Zach will play out 2026 as planned. However, energetically, when we probably have our 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th loss in a row, and those negative emotions understandably start to permeate inside the walls of the club, I'm not confident that there won't be some kind of negative projection taking place. But, that's where the club psychologists and the coaches need to have extreme foresight and prepare for it. Just because it may happen doesn't mean it cannot be contained and be an opportunity for growth. So there you go. There's a bit of an insight into the psychology of Zach's behaviour. I think there are some incredibly profound life lessons that can be taken out of it, because being vulnerable and open about how you feel is always the answer. And to be honest, that's probably the main life lesson. In turn, the club, the hierarchy, the coaches, the CEO, the staff, all need to do some introspective work on themselves and ask themselves if they are creating a safe environment, a safe place where players, the captain, can sit down and be vulnerable and be raw and not feel judged or, made to feel like they're the problem or pathologized. So it's not a Zach problem, it's not a club problem, it's an everything problem, it's an everyone problem, and it's everyone's responsibility, just like it is in society. It is our own responsibilities to make sure that we're being open and honest with the people in our lives and the circumstances and the situations in our lives so that our nervous systems are not overawed and we don't have midlife crises. That's the crux of it. Okay, now on to the one trade that we actually did make, and this is where I think the club quietly nailed it. Brayden Fiorini isn't a headline grabber or a saviour, but he is exactly what we needed right now. Professional, composed, grown-up footballer who understands how to play his role and who has some leadership capacity. He goes into season 2026 as a 28-year-old, which would make him the 6th oldest on our list, behind Merrett, 2 metre Peter, Langers, Parish and Guelphy. There are a couple of others who are 28, but by birth, their birth dates put them below him. He's not here to be a star. He's here to add some stability to a position that really requires a finely tuned knowledge. And if he takes guys like Angus Clark under his wing in the process, then that will be a huge win. He'll end up absorbing some of that grunt work, the hard running, which will in turn then let that younger talent that we have express themselves a bit more, something that they didn't really get to do this year because they were too busy playing key roles before they should have had to. And that's what makes me really like the Fiorini pickup. It's not sexy, but it's shrewd because it'll end up having a positive domino effect. Now, I thought we'd have a quick look at the players who have left and then what is left on our list. Let's have a look here. So we've obviously delisted 9 players there. Do any come as a shock? Did any come as a shock for you? I don't think any really did for me. Probably Goldstein was the one that I was 50-50 on. I was unsure if the club would choose to just err on the side of caution, given that we don't know how Brian's going to come back. But they obviously have a ton of faith in Byzantini, which is wonderful, and also Blackiston. So that is great. Obviously, we lose Draper to free agency, and poor old Will Setterfield is still in limbo. What that means for the draft is we have officially, as it stands today, 5 available selections to make if we choose. This is obviously after any rookie upgrades or restructuring. If Setterfield obviously gets cut, that leaves us with 6. And, of course, remember that Nick Cox is having another reassessment of his concussion issues. I saw that he's in the US or has been in the US getting some treatment as well. So we wait and see what happens there. But I think we've really put a big dent into our upgrade era of stripping the list back to, what it should ultimately hold, and that's lean, hungry, and ready to evolve players. The draft period for me now becomes a strategy of finding kids who plug huge holes in our list and, almost more importantly, hold psychological resilience. And that's what this next phase has to be about for me. Not just recruiting footballers, but recruiting mindsets. Not athletes, mindsets and footballers, but psychological resilience. A reminder that we currently hold, before all the bids and stuff, picks 5, 6, 21, 27, 30, 83 and 101. The draft is, I think, 3-4 weeks away, November 19th from memory. So, yeah, a week on, and on reflection, I actually think all the chaos was quite cleansing and will be quite healing in the long term. It was painful, exhausting, dramatic, sure, but sometimes you need that. Evolution says let it break so you can go past it. For Zach, it was about confronting emotional burnout. For the club, it was about backbone. And for us fans, it was a reminder of how emotionally invested we are in this club and its people, and that is a beautiful thing. It is absolutely okay and appropriate for us to sometimes feel irrationally angry, disappointed, and defensive when it comes to the Essendon Football Club. It is what unites us. And who knows, just maybe this mess will be the conduit through which Essendon starts to move, not just emotionally, but authentically towards something exceptional and sustainable. Only time will tell. I can't wait for 2026. I'm desperately missing football. I know I have an illness. But anyway, thank you all for your continued support. There is some very exciting things happening, hopefully in the next month, hopefully even sooner than that. So please stay tuned. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button, the like button, send the channel to Essendon supporters, other Essendon supporters that you know. A reminder that I know Twitter and X is a very tense and confronting place at the moment because we're battling lots of Hawthorn trolls. Just happened to be Hawthorn trolls this time. So if you want a bit of a calmer, more accepting space, Instagram is where it's at. So obviously Bomber Banter on Instagram, just the red logo. It's definitely more of a lighter energy over there. So if that floats your boat, please join us over there. I will see you all very soon. Please take care and go Bombers.